Okay. In this case, should be one of the coolest things I've ever bought. Oh, wow. Hey, real quick context about the video you're about to watch. This was originally uploaded onto my Foafy channel, which is where I talk about collectibles. But to be honest, it's one of my favorite videos I've ever made. It's a really important story and thing to me, just generally. And because by the time you're seeing this, it is either on or near my birthday, December 1st, which is when I turn 30, I just decided, this is my birthday. I'm gonna post this on the main channel because I like it that much. Oh, and don't worry, for those of you who have been looking forward to it, the Has Been Hotel Season 2 recap is coming extremely soon, so yeah, just figure you should know. Thanks. I'm a collector. We all know this. This whole channel is based around that. You know, trading cards, video games, toys, Rubik's Cubes. I just like to collect stuff that I find interesting. There's a whole bin of Rubik's Cubes right here that I just pulled that out of. But one of my biggest collecting habits that I've never really talked about here is my long-running love of collecting guitars and instruments. You know, a lot of you might know that I'm a musician, but I'm also a big music history nerd, music gear nerd of the works. And for years, I've been collecting electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, ukuleles, anything. I've had a lot of them, I sold a lot of them, but today I want to show you the absolute crown jewel of not just my guitar collection, but probably my entire collecting career, I guess. And it all has to do with my favorite band. Where is it? Hold on. Found them! Paramore! Duh! Paramore. I've not made a secret of this. So, brief history lesson. Paramore are an alternative rock group from Franklin, Tennessee, led by lead singer Hayley Williams. Back in like the mid to late 2000s when they initially broke, they were primarily like an emo pop punk band. After some lineup changes in the early 2010s, they became more of like a power pop act. After some more lineup changes after that, they became kind of an 80s new wave band. And today their sound is mostly based in like indie rock, and they're actually opening for Taylor Swift right now on her Eras tour in the European leg, which is insane. Like the crowds they're playing to right now are huge. You've probably heard their songs Misery Business, Decode, Ain't It Fun, Still Into You, and Hard Times. Those kind of seem to be the biggest ones. But I've been listening to this band for ages. I found them through Guitar Hero World Tour back in like middle school. Started listening to more of their stuff, found their live DVD, and quickly they became like my favorite band of all time. That live DVD especially, The Final Riot, I got that in high school and just watched it over and over and over. It was a huge inspiration. And over the last few years, I've decided to take my love of Paramore and my love of guitar collecting and kind of that. So I've started hunting down the same kind of guitars that were used in Paramore to add to my collection. So I did what research that I could, because unfortunately there aren't too many guitar nerds like me who are trying to catalog the gear used by Paramore. The guitar gear nerds haven't really caught up to the emo era as much, but I was able to find what I believe to be the same model of guitars that were used for the Final Riot. The camera that I was filming this video on initially died a loser's death, so I have swapped to my phone. But today's video is about bass, because I managed to find a once-in-a-lifetime guitar that, like I said, is the crown jewel of all of my collections now. A Fender Precision bass that was owned and played in Paramore. During the era that that live DVD was filmed, too. I'm not kidding. Here it is. Guy. Look at this little weirdo. So okay, maybe let's slow down a little bit. First, what is this thing? Not like the Paramore specifics of it, but like as an instrument, what is this? Well, at its core, this is a bog standard stock Fender Precision bass. What does that mean? Well, the Precision bass was one of the earliest examples of an electric solid body bass guitar, originally made by Fender in the early 50s. You know, before things like this were made, bands used to have bassists that played those big upright basses, you know, the violin-shaped things. Those were not electric instruments. They relied entirely on natural acoustic amplification, which means just how loud it is naturally is how loud it's gonna be. And as a result, in all those big swing bands back in the day, they'd get kind of lost in the mix. So boom, they make these, and now they're electric. You plug a cable into here and then out to an amp, and you can finally hear the bass player. Maybe. But then there's that P, which stands for precision. What's that about? Well, see these little metal lines that go across the fingerboard? Those are called frets. These frets divide up the fingerboard into each individual note that you can play on the instrument. So if you've never played guitar before, you're not actually pressing the string directly onto the wood, you're pressing it onto these raised little metal lines, and that decides what note you're playing. And all those double basses and violin type instruments, they don't have these frets. On those, you really are pressing the string just right up against the wood. And with no frets to keep those notes separated, you are at the complete mercy of the fingerboard. Instead of going up like this, you go up. It sounds more like that. I don't have a fretless bass to show it, but like it's just a full slide. Tiny little micro changes, even just in this area, you would be playing slightly different notes. You would be going completely out of tune. So when these electric basses came out, they were adding precision to the notes that you played. That is what it's about. You press your finger here, you're gonna get that one note every single time, unless your guitar is out of tune. And this particular P bass is styled after one that the brand Fender would have been making in 1962, but this was released in 2008. It's what they call a reissue. And as far as I can tell, besides the aesthetics, it is completely stock, exactly how you would have taken it off the rack back in 2008. Which is to say that the electronics are all original, the pieces and parts are all original, like nothing's been upgraded with secondhand parts. I believe this is a 2008 1962 American vintage reissue Fender Precision bass. So if you went to a Guitar Center in 2008 and bought one of those right off the rack, it would basically be this, but a lot cleaner. But obviously, that's not the interesting thing about this bass. The interesting thing about this bass is who owned it and what they did to it. There's honestly a really cool story attached to this bass, and I'm really excited to tell you. Now, I've not been able to corroborate any of this story with people who were actually there back in the 2000s, but from my own research, talking to previous owners, and my own just kind of general knowledge of guitars and Paramore history, this is my best approximation of the story of my Paramore bass. So in 2007, Paramore released their second album, Riot. It's the one with Misery Business on it, the one that kind of launched their careers. Now, prior to this album's release, as far as I can tell, the members of Paramore were just playing whatever guitars they had, and not many of those were Fender. In particular, their bass player, Jeremy Davis, I believe was playing these like 5-string Ernie Ball Music Man basses. From what I've seen, there are very few instances of like pre-Riot Paramore using Fender guitars, except for that one time Josh was playing a Telecaster in the Pressure video. That's it. That's all that I've been able to find, at least. But then Riot comes out, and instantly, look at that. You got a precision bass and a Telecaster, both Fender instruments. Suddenly, Paramore becomes a band that is playing basically only Fender instruments. Their lead guitarist, Josh Farrow, is primarily playing these black Fender Telecaster Deluxes in music videos and on live shows. Their rhythm guitarist, Taylor York, joins the band for some touring support, and he's primarily playing Telecasters like this. And Jeremy Davis starts playing almost exclusively Fender precision basses. Some of them are white, some of them have that kind of sunburst look, but they're all P basses. And all of these particular Fender instruments are released around the same time as the album. So my assumption here is that Paramore got a little bit bigger, a little bit more popular, and as a result, were able to score an endorsement deal with Fender, and Fender just sent them a bunch of their most recently released instruments, for the purposes of the Fender brand being visible during Paramore videos and live shows. Guitar brand endorsement deals like that are very common. It's not a big deal, because around this time, Jeremy is basically only playing this one model of P-Bass, just in like different colors. And if you went to a Paramore show back in 2008, it is very likely that Jeremy was playing a bass that was very similar to this one, but was not this exact one. You can see that the one that he's playing in the concert footage has a lot of its white finish like sanded away so you could see the natural wood underneath. This has the white all over. So my assumption is that this bass primarily sat in the guitar rack for Jeremy as a backup. If anything went wrong with his main bass, they had this one ready to go. You know, that's standard stuff for touring musicians. They need backups. At the time, it didn't look exactly like this. It probably looked a little bit more like this. And what probably happened is that Fender just sent him two of the exact same P-Bass. However, somewhere along the lines, as Paramore is touring as the opening act for pop-punk band Jimmy Eat World, Jeremy gets his hand on a Fender Jazz bass. I don't know if he bought it or if it was sent to him. It was probably sent to him because it's also from like 2008. But yeah, suddenly Jeremy is playing a bass that looks less like that and more, like this. This is an actual vintage one from 1970 something. Jazz basses, as you can tell, have a slightly different body shape. They got some different electronics that allow for some different sounds. And the neck where you put your fretting hand is a lot thinner, which makes it a lot more comfortable. So Jeremy gets this like natural ash finished Fender jazz bass, and that one just kind of becomes his new main guitar. At first he was kind of using it in tandem with his white P bass until eventually it just became the only guitar he would play throughout an entire show. Now, I don't know if this was the plan or what, but with a new instrument as his main guitar, the white P bass that Jeremy was using as his main kind of gets side saddled, and the choice is made for the other white P bass that he was using as a backup to be given away in a Paramore fan site contest. There's actually a video announcing the contest still up public on Paramore's YouTube channel, just called Jeremy's Bass, where they announce the contest and proceed to customize the bass. They just took this thing apart, took the body out into the parking lot, and just raked it through hell. They dragged it on the ground, they hit baseballs with it, Taylor York drove his skateboard over it, and then off camera they did a bunch of other stuff to it. If it's not obvious, they clearly took some kind of lighter or torch to this thing to really kind of melt up the finish. They got some burn spots here and right up here by the top horn. You can really see how the finish just sort of bubbled up and melted away. You know, it looks like someone signed their name on the back of the guitar here in like silver Sharpie, though I'm not sure whose signature that is. It looks like it might say Josh, so it might be Josh Farrow, but I didn't know because I assumed it would have been Jeremy. And right back here next to my apparently rare 2007 Warped Tour Riot shirt, I have a Paramore poster from 2013 that was signed by all three of them. I got it at a meet and greet. It's signed by Haley, Taylor, and Jeremy. I can recognize Haley's signature, I don't know the other ones. They just look like scribbles to me. But none of them look like the scribbles that are on the bass. But right here, this is where the neck gets screwed into the body. In this cavity, underneath the neck, there is a little inscription that reads, "Destroyed by Jeremy Davis and Justin York." Justin York is Taylor York's brother. He was not in the band at the time, but in a few years, he would become their new rhythm guitarist. And then my favorite detail of the entire thing that you've probably been able to see this entire time, and were waiting for me to point out, is the fact that they etched the Riot logo right into the pick guard. That is beautiful. I don't know exactly how they did it. Maybe it was like a soldering iron or something. But yeah, they got the Riot logo etched right into the pick guard there. And I didn't notice this until I had the guitar in my hands. But right here, there's another etching that is JD, Jeremy Davis's initials, which, it's so cool. It's so cool. So this guitar was given away to a lucky fan in 2008. And from talking to the people who had previously owned this before me, the original winner didn't actually play bass. So this was just on display in their room for years and years, until eventually they did decide to sell it, at which point it winds up in some UK shop until someone found it, picked it up, and started using it for their gigs. I know this because I actually found a forum post about this bass from 2018 that had that exact story. So 10 years after this thing was given away, someone bought it at a music shop. But whoever bought it then decided that they did need to sell it. I don't know why. I would maybe hazard a guess that it was around COVID times, and as a result, they might have just needed some extra money. You know, not a whole lot of gigs going on around then, but you know, who knows. But eventually it winds up in the United States on Reverb. Reverb, if you don't know, is kind of like eBay, but just for instruments. That's when I found it last year and scooped it up this year. So from the MTV Spring Break stage in 2008 all the way to my bedroom in 2024. Okay, technically it was just in the rack for that performance, but it was on the stage. It was on, you can kind of see it. And I am just so in awe to own a piece of my favorite band's history. There are people in 2008 who saw Paramore live and this bass was on stage, and now it is mine. I own it. You can't have it. And obviously I was so hyper fixated on this thing after I bought it, until it arrived, after it arrived. All that info I just dumped on you was discovered from hours and hours of scouring through old grainy tour footage, touring schedules, all that kind of stuff. Searching through footage that looks like this and sounds like this. All to find just the most basic evidence that this guitar was played on stage with Paramore. Because actually, most of the promotional images I've seen of this bass and of this bass giveaway, they don't show this one. They show Jeremy's main bass, the one with the half sanded off finish. So I wanted to find footage of this bass. And after looking up old footage of literally every single stop on Paramore's tour with Jimmy Eat World, I was able to confirm that this was played at least 3 shows. And seeing it in person was just such a trip, dude. I'm not the kind of collector who's just gonna get something like this and, you know, put it in a glass case and never look at it. Guitars are meant to be played, dude, even the priceless ones. Now, unfortunately, whoever owned this previously, probably the person from 2018, decided to take the original strings off and set it up different so that they could play it in their band, which means the original strings that were probably used on that tour have probably just been thrown away and are rotting away in the ocean. You know, totally not bitter about that, but it did make me feel less guilty about taking those strings off and setting this up to be played. I don't gig, but I've been using this for a lot of like recordings and demos and stuff. Despite the battle damage that the body took, the neck is actually shockingly clean. You know, they clearly took that same blowtorch to the headstock, and the tuners are a little bit banged up, but the neck, where you actually put your hand to play, is very, very clean. It's like it's untouched. So playing the bass actually feels pretty normal, and it sounds well, I'm a guitar player, so basses sound like basses to me. One interesting thing, though, that I've tried to recreate here is that back in the day, Jeremy would actually set up his 4-string basses to be kind of like a 5-string. If you don't know, basses typically only have 4 strings, and they're tuned like the top 4 strings of a guitar. E, A, D, G. But a 5-string bass adds an extra string that instead of going up to the next higher note, it goes down to the next lower note. So instead of being tuned to E, A, D, G, it's tuned to B, E, A, D. This is one of my other basses. It's a Hofner violin bass. My mom got it for me for Christmas, and it's my favorite bass to play. But yeah, 5 strings typically add the low B, so you can go even deeper when you're playing that bass. So instead of your lowest note being, your lowest note is now. It's almost hard to make out what note it is, but it's a low B if this is in tune. Jeremy liked playing 5 strings, and he liked having that extra low note, so he had all of his 4 strings set up to be like a 5-string without the high G. Now, when I received this bass, it had been reverted back to normal E standard. So I bought my first ever set of 5-string bass strings and tried not to mess this thing up. I wanted to make sure this was as close to how Jeremy would have had it in 2008 as possible, as close to how it was on the tour. But I'm no guitar tech, and I'm not really confident enough in any store or repair shop in town to handle this one-of-one piece. If something gets messed up on this thing, there is no replacing it. So while I'm not confident that I did the best job setting it up, I might just have to live with it being a little rough around the edges. As if it isn't already. And since I now have the exact same kind of guitar that Josh Farrow would have used in Paramore back in 08, the exact same kind of guitar that Taylor York would have been using in Paramore back in 08, and the actual bass that was used in Paramore back in 08, I guess I kind of have to put them all together, don't I? Now, obviously, I can't just do a Paramore cover right now. I would get a copyright strike, and probably no one would end up seeing this video. But that doesn't mean that I can't give my best approximation. I'm so stoked to have this bass, man. I can't get over it. There are almost certainly people watching this right now who went to Paramore shows in 2008 and saw this bass on stage. And that just absolutely blows my mind. This is a little piece of history. And in fact, this bass has inspired kind of a new life goal of mine. So I've mentioned a couple of times today, this guitar. This is a 2006 Fender Telecaster Deluxe. It's a more affordable version of a guitar that Fender would have made back in 1972. And as far as my research can confirm, this is the exact same model of Telecaster that Josh Farrow would have been using in the Misery Business video, in the Decode video, and in all of the tours for the Riot era. It is the only guitar he used for the entirety of that live DVD that I love so much. And you can even see it again on the insert of the Riot album thing. I even copied it down to the Ernie Ball strap and strap lock because I'm a nerd. And while I absolutely love this Telecaster, I think I want the real one. I can't say it without laughing because it's so ridiculous. If it is possible, it might not be, but if it is possible, I want to try and buy the actual Riot Telecaster. The one that would have been on those tours and in those music videos. I want to see if one day I can buy that guitar. I mean, I would be really happy to buy and own any more pieces of gear that were actually used in Paramore, like my bass, but this would be the guitar for me. The most iconic guitar from my favorite band of all time. So I guess this has turned into an open call to Josh Farrow. If you happen to stumble across this video from a Pokemon card YouTube channel of all things, and you still have that Fender Tele Deluxe that you were playing 16 years ago and are open to selling it, I'll buy it. But also, this is a call out to the Hard Rock Cafe in Nashville, Tennessee. If my research is correct, then you guys, who are just one state over from me, have another Paramore guitar that I am interested in. From what I've seen online, it's inside the gift shop, and it is a guitar that was smashed in the Crush 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 music video. It also comes with a microphone covered in orange tape. The sign underneath reads, "This guitar was played by Josh Farrow and smashed to its present condition during their Crush 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 video. The tape-covered microphone belonged to Hayley Williams. Both pieces were donated to the Hard Rock's memorabilia collection after their performance at the Hard Rock Live Orlando on March 27th, 2008. So you guys have another Paramore guitar and a Hayley Williams owned microphone that I would really love to add to my collection. The sign says it was played by Josh Farrow. I don't have visual evidence of that. The guitar he's playing in the music video is not the guitar that's getting smashed, and the person who's smashing the guitar is an extra, not Josh, or any member of the band for that matter. But it's a guitar that was featured in a Paramore music video, is signed by all the band members, has the Riot logo written on the destroyed pickguard, and I want it! I'm not kidding. If that is something you guys are willing to part with, hit me up on Instagram and we can talk. If nothing else, I would love to be able to take a look at it and document it for a video kind of like this. But for now, I am still beyond in love with this bass. It is the peak of my guitar collecting journey so far, probably the peak of my entire collecting journey so far. And I know that this is a pretty different topic for the Foafy channel. We usually stick to trading cards and apparently Rubik's Cubes here, but this is a collectibles channel, and this is a collectible to me, and I just had to make a video that documents this little piece of like emo music history in all of its tiny banged up details and what I just think is a really cool story. And yeah, I think that's it. Leave. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching my video, even if you had already seen it when it was on the Foafy channel. And now, of course, I gotta give a huge shout out to my Livin' in Denial channel members. Those being Loki, not that one, Chiller Beans, Steven Bro 64, KO Productions, Kisara, SpookyMon333, Princess Ella Bunny, Meme Boy 049, Reality in Color, Sam Burger, Jake Artist 13, JBG0801, Broken Pie, Revamp Skunk, Grace Strickland, L1 Brew 5, Hey It's Rosa, No Naha, Star Square, Strange Fan 101, Glue Gunner, AR Hester, Dirk, Flip Flop, Mario Underground, Wolfglar, The Flame Bucket, Michael Milton, Z-Boot, Cyril Plays 656, Mimikyu 199, Ciela Star, and Galaxy.